Hello future tech leaders, I am Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
I'll explain that again. Just started it. I like last time I created the flow for the watch one. I'll create it for this one as well. We make you understand this. If you have any doubt, let me know. For OIDC, as we discussed, OIDC is the identity layer, right? Built on top of O2. It helps you to verify the identity of the user based on the authentication performed by your authorization service. And it also, after that, it also led to obtain the profile information from the user over REST APIs they use. How it was? Basically, if I draw a diagram and show it to you. Like this end user we have. End user could be you. Like relying party. And then we have a mod. I can create. Reliant part. Relying party could be any client. Like earlier in OAuth flow, we are using this client. It could be the same here. If you are Patum, want to get your user details right. Your username, password, your family and everything, every detail about your user profile right. They want to set. Like the party would change. Now you know I decided to line part. They will call the line part. Why this is called the relying party? Because right. This one, try to fetch the user details. Any auth 2 client, like any of this client which uses the auth 2, also uses the OIDC. Now the Patum earlier only using the auth 2 only. Right now it's using the OIDC concept as well. OIDC as well. Now it's using OIDC. That's why it's calling the relying party. If only getting the auth 2 authentication, it was only performing, then it's called the client as per the auth flow. But in OIDC flow, now it will use the OIDC concept on the top of auth 2. Now it will call the relying party. I got one more. This is called the OpenID Provider AM, which is basically a local ID. The white dot. Access management. Could be any AM, right? It's just a general way. It could be a ForgeRock AM or an access management product of any other company or Facebook company or like a company. Whoever you have in this access management product like ForgeRock who can use OAuth 2 IDC concept. It can be anyone the right AM. OpenID provider called or that whose authentication server that what is called OpenID provider authentication server that implements the OIDC. That's called the OpenID provider, right? Any authentication server that perform and will use the OIDC, while it will use OIDC basically to fetch the user details to identify the user and get his details. That's why the OpenID provider. Here we have the different servers we call the authorization server and the source server. Now this one can hack and only one server can act as a both for OpenID provider. Basically any authorization server, any kind of server, any authorization server which performs the OAuth flow as well and can perform the OIDC as well. That will be called as OpenID provider. In this also, like it will give the tokens, provide the tokens, and it will fetch the user details. And then it will respond with the claims, all the user details to the relying party. We will see that now. From here now. Now this one. Here the relying party, like suppose Paytm, are trying to fetch any. They want to authenticate the user anyways. They want to get the user details right. Now it will send the redirect message, authenticate. Send the authentication request here, right? Send authentication request. The authentication request, right? Send the authentication request to the end user. End user authenticates from where it should authenticate with the AM. It will authenticate the AM. It will go to the end. User will go to the AM. AM with the AM because it has this AM has all these values, right? As a client, everything is established. This has the identity present in AM. Then it will ask for the authenticate with the AM over here for authentication. Here it will go for authentication. Send request to send it. To send it forward to AM, right? Now, once it's authenticated, then authentication and authorization request. For sending for authentication, then OpenID provider will send the details for the authentication and authorization. Once it's authenticated, then OpenID provider will send the details to end user to perform the authentication, or like you will see, right? We click on allow button and also that's authorization request it sent. It takes the concerns. It asks end user to perform authentication. And authorization request. That's right. It's asked the end user. Then it tried to authenticate and then send out. After authenticating end user, putting everything for username, password, hour. Whatever the authentication we are provided to, the user will send a request for that to confirm the authentication to the OpenID provider. Once it's authenticated, our authentication process is done right. Then it's send the OpenID provider. Send a token requires response with the ID token, or the OpenID provider send the token to the relying party, because all the process with end user with OpenID provider is done. Now the relying party will take a control over the request because it has already been authenticated and authorized by the OpenID provider. Here, it will send the authentication, send the response with the ID token and access. Right. Because OIDC was basically with the ID token. OAuth 2 doesn't have user ID token. We can fetch the ID token, but that is a part of the OIDC job. The ID token only used by the OIDC over there. If we have any way using, you see the ID token is being used for any application. You can consider that that's application using the OIDC concept over there. Then, once it's spawned with ID token, access token, then on the basis of this token, it will send a request with access token too. Like here, then it will request with a token to use access. How it will access this one, the user data. Here it is, here is here, it is here, it is here, it is. Here it is, here it is. Here is, here it is, here it is, here it is. Here it is. Here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is. Here it is here. It is here. It is here. If I have to find the user info details, then an OpenID provider will respond with the details. And then OpenID provider responds with claims. I'll tell you about claims here. And I do provide the claims. What are basically claims we refer to when we're talking about the user information? Like it's open, it lies on claims. Claims could be any specific information like it represent, like a piece of information for a user profile. Any piece of information that which AM displays the data. M displays the data. AM displays the data to the relying party. What kind of piece of information it will send to the relying party? What can be that piece of information? What details are there? Is username, its given name, its local name, right? Anything. What that piece of information it will sell. That piece of information is called claims. If anybody says and discuss about if you see any claim using a word using for IDC or in any of the 4-year projects, they were talking about the user information, user profile information, but it is a particular set of the information they had talking about. You can increase this in claims, and you can increase the attributes in the claims. You can reduce it as well. That we can do. That's why here we can go to the user information. Then it responds with the claims of claims, which is a piece of information about the user profile. That's how this OpenID flow works. Any question on that and any queries? AIM authenticates, right? Right. AIM authenticates to OpenID provider, right? Right. OpenID provider authenticates the user. OpenID provider authenticates the user. I'll just write it like that here. And user get authentic. Get it by M. Now it is good. Then what is the next? Respond with the ID token. Once it is authenticates it, responds with the ID token. It gives the ID token to the user. Once you have said that, like in auth flow, right, we are getting the code, and then we are getting the access token. In the same way, it responds with the ID token and access token as well. Then they'll use this access and ID token to verify and fetch the user data via this user endpoint. And then this user endpoint will give us the user details about the user. Like what kind of details it will provide. That will respond to the claim with the end user. It will provide the claims. We say claims or claims is a user details only, but it's a particular piece of information. User details could be anything, right? It could have a 10 or 15 attributes, but we just need 4 or 5 attributes. That's only required, right? Like your first name, last name, your email ID, or whatever, only required attributes for this relying party. Only that information will be assigned to this relying party. We'll discuss a little more in claims in coming class. I go back to tomorrow. Tomorrow we will discuss. This is called a claim with a piece of information. Yes, Pranay. Basically, if you see the comparison, as I told you, we have this end user in OIDC flow. All the actors of these are called basically all actors like OIDC or key components, or you can say any OIDC actors like that. End user is a relying party, OpenID provider. The same way the auth flow have these actors resource on our client authorization resource server. These are called the key components or key actors of all these. Auth to an ID flow. This is how the party. I am out coming back to the auth flow as well. You understand the difference. What's the difference here? And also what auth 2 is doing and what extra here. If you see, we have everything is like this. But after this one, this access token is getting one more extra detail after this one, basically after this part, right? If I'm going to show you. This is done by simple. When it gets access token extra information, write this extra information to get the ID token. Basically here to get the extra. This still here. It on the auth flow works still here. Auth flow response with ID token and access token. Right after that, this is the OIDC where comes up. That's why it's called like. That's why it's called that. OIDC's like is identity layer. Identity layer built on top of auth 2 because half of the perform work done by auth 2. And then this response with ID token, get the ID token and use that ID token to verify the user information by the OIDC. That's why when I'm saying this line like OIDC, this part is OZ. OIDC means called full OIDC, but the main functionality of the OIDC starts from here. Before that, it's probably auth flow. Right. OIDC is built on top of Auth 2. Its users extend the functionality of the Auth 2. It uses functionality for Auth. Take all this functionality access token, ID token, and then use that token to fetch or verify the user information details. That's why it's a part of the Auth 2, or you can say OIDC is built on top of Auth 2. Got. Yes, Pranay. This is the extra layer, right? This is extra layer this time. This is the OIDC was doing before that Auth 2 is doing. Total. It's called OIDC, but the main before that Auth functionality, what we discussed before, that is working. And after that, this user information comes in picture. Whole concept called OIDC, but it's what built on top of Auth 2. Let's discuss. Like we were doing this hybrid grant we discussed, right? Yes, Pranay. Let's try to do that. We use fit the code and ID token we will use. Now can you create a user? Now there is a, you need to. You want to practice or do I? Should I show? Postman. You want to practice. We'll do the hybrid grant. We did it once, like we do it again, because the part of this OIDC, then you will understand. We need to create a new client. Any client in client secrets, cooperate and response type. You will give code and ID token. Can you share your screen? I'll just. Can I take refresh client? You can take refresh client, but you need to add the ID token. You need to go to the client once. I mean into the. Unfortunately. And check the client has. Go to client, go to your, that client you're talking about. And then go to your client or any refresh client. We need to go to advanced tab. You need to add the grant type over here. Grant type would be how you need to add the authorization code. You need to add the grant type. Can I take what client or refresh client? I'll take any client refresh client. That's fine. Go to advanced and then go to here, grant type. Can I add which one? Here, it will work with authorization code. That's fine. You don't need to add the extra. Now we need to add the response type. We need to see we should have code and ID token. We have already that response type. The second line. Second line first code ID token. What is the token? Yes, already is there. We can use this client now. I hate that client for to get the authorization code and ID token. But your response type would be with code and ID token. Go to 17th line number, not 17. Here change the code %20 token to code %20 tutor ID hyphen token. ID hyphen token. Code ID hyphen token. That's it. Can I add the response type? Any space is required after 20 or something. After 20 space is required. No, after 20 space is required. Is it fine now? That's fine. The code ID underscore token. Can I copy or? See, I want to show you this code. Is there an ID token? Is that right? Yes, this ID token you are receiving now. Copy this ID token into the notepad once. Oh, is it a lengthy one? Let's see one thing. Up to this one. Sorry, up to this one. Image or complete. ID 2. Lala. It's after starting from EY to IVY Wembul. Up to this one. You have to end. You have to end. Hello. Copy separately once, sir. Copy separately. Can you go to the JBT? Can I paste here? F. Paste here. Yes, user details came through. These are all the user details and the subname and everything. If you want to fetch this ID token information, you can do that. Yes, ID token information. And you can get this detail from the curl postman as well. Let's try to fetch this from postman ID token. Can I add here one more? Create one new request. Name OpenID. You can do OpenID or ID token anything. OpenID token OpenID. Right. And I give the user that basic auth and give the user information and go to the authorization. Basic auth. Refresh line for drug. Refresh line correct. And do that. Do that. In respect, can I remove? I can remove. Here at the end of the auths too. After that you can do ID token info. Can I remove relation root? Sorry, can I remove this part? Auth2/ID token info. Is it correct? ID to auth2/ID token info. That's fine. Make it a post request. It's a post request. ID token info, is it correct? Or can I take small t as a capital T? No, ID token info in small letters is fine. Now show that. That's fine. That's fine. You are HTTP localized Rajiv/auth2. That's fine. ID token info post request basic right. And go to the param. Go to the param. Put ID hyphen token in key and there in ID token value. ID token value. ID token value means I missed aware that you copy the EY and fill that one. You copied one EY, I copied it and there's a long token. That one, that value. Do one thing, get one new request, make it new request. OS. This is ID underscore token or ID token. ID underscore token small. What happened? This ID token value. No, you are not. You need to put the code %21 on that one. I think it's coming. Here I have sent a hit. ID haven't token. And the fine order. The votes to ID token info. Show me the from where you're fetching. Show me the authorization. Click on the authorization. And here only. First, which client you are using, refresh client and all. Basic code. ParamID token. Go back to your URL. Now not this URL from where you fetch the data notepad. Not go to the new request where you have coded %20. For refresh client. Not this one. When you need to hit that again. I just want to see. This is your hitting for the implicit client. See, you need to hit for the refresh client. You need to change the client name. Like ID equal to implicit client, you need to hit the refresh client. When you change the client name. Now fetch the ID token. Copy this one and copy the ID token value and put into that, and being a boss, right? Why are you not getting result? That's fine. Click on hit once. In ID token info, I guess it's your I is using capital you need to use in an URL. I should be a small. Before question mark. This is in for this I's capital info. I's capital. You need to use it small. I should be small after token. This one. And now hit once. See, now you are getting all these details. That what we are details. We are trying to hit from JWT. IO right over there. Now you are seeing all these details are here. With this, they were provided this OAuth token in front point where you get all this user information. Now what you need to do, this one. There is a claim. What I'm talking about, the claims as well. Right, suppose I need to be click a set of information. Suppose copy this result in your notepad once. Now see this. Now suppose I don't want to return all the values, I just want to return few values. Right? Like this sub. And this Raymond expiry. How I can get that? Go to the command. Now in second key write claims. In second after ID token, second key parameter. They are in ID token above in param. Param is. Here I write claims. Write claims. Oh, the claim see I made. Not right. On a word claim. Word claim claims. Now at the value side, put like sub from. Because here you said right. And then I put expiry exp, comma exp. For my XP is the expiry is a different attribute right now. Click send. It should return only these two values now. See, because we have filtered it. Now, if I need to add some more value, like I need to add the realm, comma realm. Real. See, third attribute is coming. That's how, without claim, I can fetch full details. And with claims, if I write over there with particular attributes, I can fetch only that information. What is it? What is this X? This is a XP's expiry. Expiry of the token. This is the time format. It's also the time format they give. That's how you will fetch the token information, and with the token information, you can set these claims because you like this. Claims are talking about this piece of information. You can option and use this claim parameter to return the specific attribute or claims for particular. And we have discussed this workflow. We discussed how to fetch and fetch that. Can we receive the ID token or we can fetch the ID token information and how we can set up the claims for that. This is like a part of the OIDC. Next is we need to talk about Now we'll talk about the ID token uses. I'm just checking which topic should I touch now. This one. This ID token info. This is the user-defined one or... Sorry, I didn't get your question. This is the user-defined one. Which one ID token info? The REST endpoint for the ID token information. I didn't get your question. What would you do by? It's a user-defined. What? Where can you take this one? This user-defined or... Where can you find it? It's an OpenID Connect endpoint REST API endpoints. Not a user-defined. User-defined is like where you fetching the ID token. ID token. EYJU, that was the user-defined one. That was not directly user-defined, but user can hit the URL and get the ID token right. It depends upon the user authentication. But this OAuth to ID token info is one of the OIDC OpenID Connect endpoints. That's what my question. REST information, REST endpoints. This we can use to fetch all these details. Let me share my screen. I'll show you about some OAuth to provider settings, which are basically for dynamic registration and OIDC client authentication. Let me share my screen. Now what I need to show? I need to discuss about the OAuth to provider. It has a client dynamic registration. This AM support this client dynamic registration. For the means we can register the client like we are registering via the here directly. We can set up a way we can dynamically register the client as well. Right. For that, and we do by giving the how, by giving the payload. If we give a payload in JSON in, and also we can give the create the client registration. For that, what we need to do? This, you see this client dynamic registration. We need to allow this setting. In a UI, we go to realm service or to provider, and then you need to switch on the client dynamic registration tab, and then you need go allow open dynamic client registration. This one is like when with the code, or you can create a script or something to create a dynamic client registration. We can register a client without an access token. If anybody, we should consider adding some of the client registration. For more details, I guess you can follow this document. It has a lot of details about this, each endpoint we are using. Basically, but for this client registration, to allow the dynamic, we need to enable it. This part over here. And that will require a software statement to register the required software for dynamic client registration. This is we need to enable for software JBJ. Now the token is the ISIS user claim and might be provided. ISIS user is the issue, another who is issuing the token information. Who will be the redirect URL? The redirect URL we are using. That's how for the dynamic client user. How it will work? We can create that Then to change the scopes of client registration to one step. Can give you a right to do. For that one I need to. I can create a one profile for doc token to enable a dynamic registration. With access token we can register application. The same way like just scopes. Claim to dynamic registration scope access to here if you go to the application lines and go to them. My client right. Let me get a new client. Like I will create a client ID. Register. This is the direction you are. And you. Scoping here I will give dynamic hyphen client registration. Dynamic hyphen this version. I create. Here, I have done that. Now if I go to my services again, go to a provider client dynamic registration. This one here, I have given this one, see. Here it is coming, client dynamic registration. Says to client dynamic registration and save changes. This is I can create my scope algae from dynamic lines. Here I created that user. Here I get the user for the dynamic line. Scope would be same over there. Right. The same way we can test the application. Now, if I want to create it right out of the Postman, I guess I can. Create it, I need to create a data and name. This is how I will create that line Postman. Enforcement. Now what I'll do, I'll register the client we oppose. That tells me a lot of the client dynamic client registration. Right? Let me create a new request. That's how. And for us too. And then with register. Now I need to give the header. And I need to delete it first. I don't require it. Then I need to give the content type. And to get the application. And the body I need to give. Where I will. To be post where I'll give. Where I have to give the client. Where, how we are creating, where they are giving the client name. Redirect URL and everything right. Same way, we need to give the data over there. Let me give that data. Here will be direct. Trying to register the client. Trying to register it. It should work. In the client name. And giving the N for localhost 8993. Versto realms root register. And giving the dark access client. Client type name. Get that? And I need to give. It could be had. And I have given that. An access token not. We should get the title. Click at the client. We have given this is we need to get it and your eyes. Let me copy this to you. Why is giving me access token and not asking for access token? I'm trying to register the user. And I need to give the thing and quantum type body. And this should basically work. And giving it a Q, R and everything that they're asking. And for example, open dynamic client registration. We have enabled. It should work after enabling the. Go to the and then make registration. It's not saved. I guess they'll open. I guess it was not saved. Redirect your eyes. We gave a redirect your eyes. See now. This client gives example has been. Seeing the district. Can we see it? See, this one is registered as our client ID. This is registered. We have given this detection. This client name. We can change that. I just copied from curl command, but we can change that as well. What I did, basically I did the client dynamic registration to make it work. I need to go to O2 provider. And I need to allow this one. Right. And then with this command aware this. I have given the root register and point. And I have given the client name and everything. I will say if I give the client name, other client. Right. And no one. Other client and give the name. And client name. And everything else. This is something I have given a unique number to get a unique number. If I give anyone client name, English. I'll remove this. I'll just give that client name. Client name. I gave this one. See this one now. I should have created another client name. I guess I go to application O2 clients. O2 client register service. Now gets created with this name. Here now client name is giving me other client. This one is giving the client name we are giving. That's when I mean. I guess that's how we can create a new one. I guess if you give the client ID, then it will take the client ID. Just test that. That's how we can create a new client into the AM. Earlier we were creating manually, right? Go and click now with the help of this root/register endpoint. And by allowing the allow open dynamic client register in O2 provider setting. We can register our own client via the Postman or via this REST API service. Understood. A little bit knowledge is required for me. Tomorrow. Can you check? Basically earlier. This main takeaway from this is like we are creating this client from. Here right click on add client and alright. Maybe you have to manually go to the Azure can clear that. Now with this one we can create the client from Postman. We'll give the data whatever the client name, client ID redirect URI. This is what we have given over here, right? If you create a client ID, give this information, right? This information I'm now giving via Postman. And via Postman it's creating. I sent this request which created the register in my Fogger here in client. But for that, before that, I need to enable the services into O2 provider. In client and registration over here, I need to enable the services. Then I can create it. If I don't enable it, if I remove it, then I'll get an error. See if now I will check any more other client name. Right? Anything right? I mean other. Or the low client. And I change the client question. Do you have to if I hit it? It give me error. Because this one is not enabled. The client dynamic allow registration is not enabled. As soon as I save changes and try to create it, it will help me to create that and it will be created in a O2 over here. This one would be created, I guess. Yes. Yes, this is. Now understood. Basically, we are trying to create a client dynamically. With this endpoint, we can. That's it. Tomorrow, I guess we discuss more regarding this. Why this is job. We need to say why this user sessions. And some token usage, session cookies, and all some few endpoints. Also, we'll discuss more about OIDC. Let's see if we can. In real-time dynamic. Registration also. We are working or we work real-time also. Real-time it works depends upon the application. Sometimes in a client have multiple applications, right? Like they have set up this one for the setup an application to allow the client. Then they can add many OIDC clients, right? Even I worked on one application that they are using around 400 OIDC clients. 400 OIDC clients which they are handling their ForgeRock application handling 400 different OIDC applications. That's a real world application, right? And even they can add it. They generally in production, they will not go into the ForgeRock. They don't open the console. Or they don't open, click on that, the client and create the new application, right? In the real world, they use this OR. This endpoint services to create the client, right? They just need to have this URL and that's it. And then the AM should be up and running and their service should be enabled in AM. And then what they should? They can create as much as any client from here, right, in Postman. Basically in a real world, we'll know, we tried. If it's a big application, they don't usually go and create manually. They will do via the Postman. It's more safer site. It's better, it's good. That's right. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.